everybody, and welcome to my YouTube channel. I'm Shellie Geigle with J&S Hobbies and Crafts, and today's tutorial is on this 6 1/4 by 8 1/4 folio. I was finally able to get a day without construction noise, and I was able to finish this up for you. This came out really pretty, and it's a 1 paper pack folio, and this paper is the Asuka Studios Dusty Blue Floral. It did not offer a designated page for cut-aparts or even panels, so what we ended up doing is on one of the prints we cut out the clock and we put it here. So this paper was super easy to work with. If you're a beginner, this is a great folio to begin with. I do take you step by step. This is a free tutorial. It's not real complicated. If it looks complicated, don't worry. Again, I take you step by step through this, and it's super easy. There are some options. If you're not a lace person, I do show you what it looks like without, and it looks just as good. So this is what we have for the outside. It has a magnetic closure. And if you're wondering what the difference is between a folio and a mini album or a large album, well, how I describe it is a mini album opens up kind of like a book and you flip through the pages. Folios, I like to say, it's something that kind of folds in on itself, and you'll see that in just a moment. So we first fold that front flap out, and then we fold again, and then again. So you can kind of see how I mean by folding in on itself. Our first page here is a large side pocket, and you're able to get about 3 picture mats in per pocket in this. And we did this, and just a little tag here. Over here we have a pocket, and I got a couple picture mats in here right now. This folds out. And on our next page, what we have here is a little tuck. And then this flips up. Great place for photo. And then our pocket. As soon as I'm done showing you this, then we're going to move into the materials list, and then we're going to begin assembling this. And there's not much to the materials list. This page we left alone, so you can just place your photograph. Over here we have another pocket, and there's also a little tuck up front here. Then you can tuck maybe a tag or a photograph. So it turned out really nice. Then it flips again, and we just have open space for photograph or photographs. And that is all there is to it. And to close this, all you do is just flip in on itself and then closes. So that's what we're going to be making today. Let's move on into the materials list. Materials list, let's review that. You're going to need 1 pack of the Asuka Studios Dusty Blue Floral 12 by 12, and in this you're going to get 12 double-sided sheets, and it is absolutely gorgeous. So just 1 for this folio. You're going to want some good cardstock, and you'll want a 12 by 12 size for at least the base. I'm just using the American Crafts 80-pound 12 by 12, and it's white, and you'll have leftovers for another project. Magnets, you're going to need magnets, and this is the basic gray, and these are the large magnets, and you will need half a pack. For some adhesives, 1/4 inch score tape. I like to use it on the seaming of my 12 by 12 base folio, as well as for the outside prints so it makes sure it lays flat. On the inside I will be using glue, and I like to use the Art Glitter Dries Clear glue. Options. So this is optional. If you don't like lace, you don't have to, but I was going to experiment a little, and all I'm going to use it is for the outside. This is called, I think this is called the flapper style. If you are using lace, I do recommend getting the Becon fabric tack, and this is for fabrics and gluing. You just need that for the lace. Completely optional. That is all as far as the materials we'll need, but as far as tools, you'll want a scoring board, a paper cutter, scissors, your bone folder scoring tool, eraser, pencil, and a craft knife is always handy. Let's begin assembly of our base folio. Moving on into the base of the folio, let's review some pre-cuts. So we had cut two pieces that were 8 1/4 by 12 inches, and we labeled these base. We also had a pre-cut under the base category, 6 1/4 by 8 1/4, and we labeled that P2. That's going to be panel 2 and 3 actually. What we did was we laid this on our scoring board. We are 6 1/4 across, and we scored at 1/4 inch. Next, we had a 6 3/8 by 8 1/4, and we labeled that P5. We laid this on our scoring board. We are 6 3/8 across, and we scored this at 3/8. All right, let's begin. Now on the pre-cutting guide, it did say that we will be seaming and scoring together in case you were unsure. So we're going to start with our 8 1/4 by 12 inch pieces, and what we're going to do is lay them out like this. This is where the 1/4 inch score tape comes in handy because we have a 1/4 inch allowance for our overlap. If you are new to working with score tape, you'll want to wash your hands and free it up of any oils or lotion because it reduces the potency if you have that on your fingertips, and we want this to be unforgiving. If you would rather use glue, that's fine. Just kind of measure in a 1/4 inch, make a mark here and a mark down here, and make sure that your glue stays in that margin. So I'm just going to lay this right on the side without going over, top and bottom. If you are a little bit, maybe a 1/16 or just a smidgen over a 1/4, it's going to be okay. So you don't have to start over. But one of the most important things I can tell you if you are a beginner is you're going to definitely want to use your tool to burnish. And burnish is just making sure that the adhesive gets down to your paper and all the air bubbles are out from underneath. So once you do that, if you are someone who likes to tear or maybe cut differently, you want to make sure that there is no score tape peeking over the edge. All right, the next step is we're going to remove the score tape backing there, and we're going to lay this over. Now I have a hard time staying straight, so what I like to do is grab my paper cutter and use this guide up here. What's going to happen is I'm just going to slide that through. I'll push that up against, and I'm going to remove the backing, and this just helps me to get this on straight. And I'll push that one up. And now I'm just going to overlap here. And you just kind of try to push that up against the guide and keep it on over the thing there. If it's a little off, it's okay, but you can always do some trimming if needed. So I got that on, and I'm just going to burnish. Now, grab your scoring board, and it does not matter if you're scoring the 0 starting point is here or over here. If you have to start scoring over this way. I will get us situated when we're all done scoring. So right now our piece is approximately 23 3/4 inch long. You can deviate a little bit if you're 23 5/8, that's fine. So we're just going to push this up against our guide here, and our first score is going to be at 3 1/8. And if you have any writing on your base, you can erase it now. So 3 1/8 is our first one. Our next one is 3 7/8. Our next is 10 1/8. And then we have 10 5/8. Now on the instructions, what it says is to rotate your piece. All we're doing is starting to score from the other side because our paper's so long. We're going to score at 6 1/8 and 6 7/8. Okay, next thing we're going to do is just start folding. And we're going to use our tool and make sure when you fold you are lining up with your paper here and here. If you're not, just maneuver it so it is. And we're just kind of folding towards us on this. And I'm going to do from the other side, it'll be much easier. And you'll notice we have a seam right here. So by the time we're all done, you really won't notice that. Okay, what you're going to want to do is at all times, unless I'm telling you to turn around, you see the smallest area here? We have a large area here and a small area here. This is going to be off to our right side. This is actually our closure area. So you can see where our first score line hit is. What I want you to put here is just do 2 circles. It doesn't matter where. That's just going to remind us that that's where our magnets are going to be placed. Now for teaching purposes, you don't have to do this. What I'm going to do is on my score lines here, I'm just going to lightly draw so you can kind of see where my score lines are. It'll make it easier for me to teach this and for you to stay with me on it, because it's kind of hard to see with white. So that's all I'm doing right now, and you don't have to do that. Okay, I think you can see those score lines. Now what we're going to grab is our 6 1/4 by 8 1/4. We labeled it P2. And all we're going to do is fold on that little 1/4 inch score area there. And we're going to get this in our book. So I'm going to show you first, and one thing that's going to help us here is over here on the inside, I want you to put P1. Okay? Now, here is that little flap, and the peak would be over here. And here's my first score line. All we're going to do is put glue here, and we're going to line it up top and bottom without getting on the score line, but right next to it, and we're going to glue that down. Now, if you have any writing on this, you can erase it, and then we'll write in, because if you're scoring from the right, it's going to be different for someone scoring on the left. If you scored on your scoring board, if you start from the left, you'll probably have P2 on the right side, but which way we're flipping here. Okay, so let's do this. We'll just get some glue on there. So if it's easier, what you can do is pull up that first, where your first score line is, and you can just push this right on up against it if you'd like. It's up to you. We just want to make sure that it's even with the bottom and top of our base here. And once you have it, you can just kind of burnish it. So here it is. Right here you write P2, you flip it over. This is P3. Right here, so here's P3 on the back side of this. I want you to write P4. Now on our pre-cut, we have a 6 3/8 by 8 1/4, and we called it P5. Let's go ahead and fold on that little flap. And I'm going to go ahead and erase what I got here. Mine's going to be on the wrong side by the time I get this in. Okay, so you can see I have 2 score lines right here, here and here. We're going to do the same thing. We're going to apply glue, and the little peak part back here is going to be on this side. This is going to glue down right like that. Whoops. My coffee is done brewing. I'm going to go grab that. I finally get a day of quiet without construction workers here, so I'm trying to get this filmed and done before I forget what I wanted to do. So we just want to make sure it does not get on the score line, and it's right up next to it. I think mine's on there pretty even. Okay, so we have the P4 here. We'll go P5, whoops, and on the back side is P6. This is P7, and over here where our little magnets go, we'll go P8. And P stands for panel or page. So our base is done. So I'm going to show you how this kind of goes in here. All you have to do is fold this in and fold it in again, and then this comes over. So if you have anything on there, you can erase it. Now we're going to label the other parts. So here's our inside. P1, let's flip that over. And right here we're going to put outside panel. We're going to flip it over again and we're going to put front. We'll flip this over and we will put front closure. Oops, my writing is horrible. And we'll flip it over to the back. So that way it's going to keep us in the right orientation, and it's going to kind of go along with the pre-cutting guide for us. Okay, next thing we're going to do is place some magnets. We are moving into decorating the outside of our folio. Moving on to decorating the outside. I forgot to turn on the camera, but that's okay because this is really easy. In your magnets, grab 2 plus and 2 minus. Your pluses are going to go one here and here on the inside of your P8, kind of where you put those circles. Come down 2 inches and then come in 1 inch from the side, place your plus, and you'll do the same over here. Now to get this magnet to line up with this accurately so your folio shuts, what you're going to do is take 2 of your minuses and just place them right on top here. Okay, I'll just do that. Pretend that's not here. So this is the easiest way I know how to teach this to get this on. So what you're going to do is remove the adhesive from your minus here, and I'm going to remove that right now. And then what you're going to do is, you see this front corner and you see your first score line here. What you're going to do is tuck this corner right in the crease. And you can pinch that. I'm right-handed, so it's easier just to kind of pinch that and then bring it over even with the top. And then you can press. And then what happens is it'll place your first one. The second one is very easy. And what we'll do is the same thing. Here's our minus. And I'm going to turn this upside down because I'm right-handed, it's easier. But I'm going to do the same thing. I'm going to put this corner right here. Now, the bottom's going to catch first. Okay, so I'm going to kind of keep my finger in here. Let that latch, and that should come even with the top as well. And then I'm just going to resituate this. These magnets are really strong, so if you were to try to pull straight up, it may tear off your page. So the easiest way is to grab it and kind of shimmy it, kind of slide it to come off. Now that we have our magnets placed, I'm going to set this off to the side. We're going to get into our decorative paper. In your paper pack, you will find these 2 gorgeous prints. You'll see this one, and you'll find this one. The first thing that we're going to do with these is go ahead and remove the trim pieces. So I'm just going to stick this on my paper cutter and trim that off. These pieces we do not need to keep. This one's set off to the side for a moment. We're going to work on this. And the grains, right now I am looking at them so it's correctly. Now one thing about how I teach when I'm showing you how to cut your paper, is I'm always going to try and start and tell you to start here and measure over this way. It keeps us consistent. That way I'm not having you cut down, up, over. I'm going to try not to, at least. However, because I stay consistent like that, I may have us turn our paper sideways and then have us cut. And that's what I'm going to do with this first one. If you notice, the grains are now moving this way. Our first cut is we're going to measure over 8 inches and we're going to cut. So I'm going to grab my board here. Again, you'll see the wood grain is sideways. And we're measuring over 8 inches. My blade is right over here, by the way. And we'll cut. This piece that falls off, we're going to put in what I call a reserve pile. It's just a scrap pile. I've always called it my reserves. So that's what that goes. We're reserving it to use at a different time. Now that we got that, this is easy. We're just going to measure over 6 inches and cut that right in half. Now you're going to have 2 pieces that are 6 inch wide by 8 inch tall, and we're going to use both of these. One's going to be for the front and one's going to be for the back. So we're just going to set these off to the side right now, and we're not going to jump ahead and glue down the front. We still have another magnet to place. We're just going to get all our pieces ready to go here, and we will get back into our reserve piece in a moment. Now let's grab this piece, and I'm actually going to flip it to look at it this way because I want to make sure we all have the same leftover prints. So the first thing I would like us to do is we're going to measure over 3 inches and cut. And I'm just looking at it the regular way. So 3 inches. I'm going to put this in my reserves for right now. And now I'm just going to rotate it so I'm looking at it like this, and I'm going to measure over 8 inches and cut. Very easy. This little piece we'll just put in our reserves. So we're going to flip this over, that piece. We're going to stick with our other 2 pieces. And we are going to get this out of our reserves. And I'm looking at it to where it's like this. So we're going to measure over 8 inches and cut. We'll put that in our reserves. Now I'm just kind of looking at it like this. I'm going to measure over 5/8 and cut. Now 5/8, I don't have that measurement here, so I'm going to actually make a little mark with my pencil for 5/8 so I know where I'm supposed to be. And then we'll just cut. So I'm going to turn this upside down. It's easier that way for me. Okay. And I am going to stick this one off to the side. The next one is we're going to measure over 3/8 and cut. So once again, I'm going to make a little mark where I need to be. And I'll just trim that off. And I'll put that with it, and then this piece goes in our reserves. Let's grab our folio. So the first piece that we're going to glue down is this one. And I'm going to use score tape, like I said, for the front, and then I'll use glue on the inside. It's completely up to you. I have my folio closed, and if I was to place this, you'll notice that'll give me a nice white border top and bottom where I can just kind of center it in there. And then I'll have some white over here. So to make it easier, I'm going to just fold this right out like this. And that way when I burnish down, it'll go down. So I'm going to grab my score tape, if I can find it. And again, you can use glue if you prefer. And I'm just going to make sure I get those edges. And so if you're using score tape, what we're going to do is we're just going to go all the way around like a picture frame with this. And then we'll get some down the middle. Okay, I'm just going to go 2 centered in between. One of the most important things I think I mentioned is to make sure we burnish. Okay, so if you are confused, once again, what we're going to do is we'll remove our score tape or use your glue, and we're just going to place that, and we're going to center that top and bottom so to make sure that if we have white border at the top and bottom, that's even. So I'm just going to fold that out. Now score tape is not forgiving, so one thing that you can do is squirt some glue like at the bottom a little bit over it, and to help get it on there in case you're getting it on crooked. So I think I'm going to do that. I usually like to start from the bottom, so as you can see I'm just adding a little glue. That way when I place the bottom first, I can still kind of shimmy this to make sure. And make sure you do not get on that score line over there. That's probably one of the most important things. I think I'm fairly straight. And then we're just going to burnish down really good. And be careful of your magnets that are underneath on the back side. Okay. I'm going to flip this all the way back around. So far that's what we have. Let's grab our 2 strips here. Now for this, I'm going to probably use glue because it's easier to manage than score tape. You'll notice you have a wider side here than you do on this side. So the wider one is going to place over here. And you'll do the same thing, and you can stay even with the top of this decorative paper over here. The idea is just to get it in there and kind of center it so that you have the same white borders. So, but these smaller pieces, I'm just going to make sure I get those edges. I don't know which way's what. It doesn't matter. It's just the spine. So I'm just going to kind of keep this straight and even. That's why I said for the spine, it's easier to use the glue. And then I'm just going to open this back up and burnish that down. And while I have it like this, I'm going to grab my back piece. It doesn't matter which one you're using. But you can see where your score line is here when you open it up like this. And you have a score line right over here. We're going to do the same thing. We're apply glue, or we're going to do the score tape, and I'll show you what mine looks like after I get score tape on. And we are just going to center it in between those little score lines. So one's here, score line, and one's here. And we'll get it even with the other. So all I'm going to do, if you're using score tape like me, is I'm going to go around first the outside like a picture frame. Once you have that, we'll go one down the middle, and then a strip on each side. And then we're going to place it. And again, please use that glue technique if you need to. And don't forget to burnish. That's one of the most important things. Okay, here we go. Just going to kind of keep this as even as I can. And I'm going to erase my pencil marks here. Fold it all back together. We have this, and now it's time for this one. And we're just going to do the same thing. Glue it right on in there. Okay. And again, open their folio up if needed, so you can burnish down and all that. Okay, when you are done, we should be sitting right like this, and you're going to see it, it's going to look like this. And we do have pockets and everything, but we'll have some good spacing in there for our photo mats and everything. It's time to work on this front. And in your paper pack, and we have this set off to the side. Now, because this paper pack did not give us any panels or cut aparts, this sheet is the one I'm going to use for that. So find this in your pack, and let's take off that trim piece first. So the first thing that I would like us to do is to cut out and around this. So we may not use this whole sheet for the cut aparts. And then again, I'm not sure how I want to do the designing with some of these pieces, but I do know for this. So what you're going to want to do is get as close as you can when you're cutting, and try to keep just one cut so that all this other stuff stays intact on the paper when we put it in our reserves. So like for instance over here, I'm just going to kind of weed around and not cut it completely off. The only reason why I say that is it's easier to find our pieces when it's in reserve, if on cut aparts and stuff like that, if they're not in so many different cutted pieces, what I'm trying to say. I hope that made sense. So this is what we have, and what I'm going to do is kind of cut out and around this a little bit better, and then I'm going to show you what mine looks like when I'm done, so you can kind of get an idea what I'm kind of going for here. So I'll be right back. Matter of fact, I'm going to go and grab my coffee. I do need that. So this is what mine looks like. Now notice that I didn't do any sharp edges. I just kind of went and weaved around with rounded edges on this. Now we do want to make sure that this is strong. So once you have your piece, we're going to apply glue, and we're going to glue that down to some white cardstock. And we will burnish really good. We'll wait for the glue to dry, and then we're going to cut out and around, leaving about a 1/16 of white cardstock showing around. So it will kind of separate this from any background prints behind it that shows up. And I'll show you what mine looks like when I'm done. And if you're unsure about the lace, I will kind of show you what it will look like with and without before I do it, so that you can see, that's not my thing, or yes, I definitely changed my mind, that's what I want. So I'll be showing you what it looks like. I have mine all cut out, and I'm going to bring it up so you can kind of see. I am not the best fussy cutter, so by adding the white cardstock or a solid colored cardstock behind, it not only stiffens up my piece because it's going to be on the cover, but it does separate between the colors. It helps separate and bring forward this piece when background, and it also helps clean it up a little bit, at least in my opinion. So if you were going to be using the lace, clean it up a little. So what's going to happen, and I'm going to show you this whole thing, what's going to happen. Don't jump ahead. Again, we have magnets to place, but I want to show you what this is going to look like. It's going to look really good either way. So I'm just going to place that down, let the magnets hold that for a minute. If you are not using lace, your end result is going to be this on the front, and it's going to look really good. Now, as far as the lace, if you are using that, you would cut an 8 1/4 inch strip, and it will look different once we get that glued down to the side. But this is pretty much in a nutshell what we're going to be looking like, and I think it'll look really good by the time we're done straightening that out and getting it down. The biggest thing is the sides of your piece. When you lay it down, these sides should not go over your edges. If so, you're going to have to chop it down just a little bit. But I think that's going to look really good. If you are using lace, let's do that. I am going to do that. So I'm just going to open this up, and I'm going to start getting this down. If you are not using lace, hold tight. We'll do the next steps together to get our magnets on. Make sure my lace is the right way. There we go. Straight. And I'm going to chop off the edge here. Okay, so once you have your lace on, if you're using this, it probably grabbed really quick. If you are using this to get your lace on, you're going to have to let it sit for about 10 minutes. So now that's what I have. Okay, let's all begin and together now. What we're going to do is put glue only on halfway through this, making sure it's going to be centered. So you'll want to put your folio together so that you can make some marks. So we don't want glue on anything on this side. So I'm just going to center this where I want it, and one of the things I like to do is lightly put some outline of my piece so I know where it's supposed to go. And because I have some fabric here, I am going to use fabric tack over the lace right to the edge, and then the rest I'll use some glue so I can see where my outline is. Something like that. Any glue that kind of squirts out anyway, I am going to make sure that I clean up. So it looks like I'm supposed to be somewhere in this area. Glue. So I'm not pressing it down just yet. I'm just going to kind of maneuver this to where it looks straight and it looks good. So I think for mine, right about there. I'm not going over and it looks good. So now that I know where it's supposed to place, I'm going to quickly open this up and burnish down so it grabs. Wipe up any glue. Alright, once you have that down, it'll look something like this. It's going to kind of bow out until we fix this. So we'll just kind of give it a little bend. And now we're going to grab a plus and a minus. So here's my plus and minus. I think you can see what I'm doing. So for this, all I'm going to do is just kind of come right on over to the farthest edge where I can without going over. And then I'll place it, put my mate. Let the book close and press. So now that is down. I'm going to kind of shimmy this to get that back up. And we can place our front piece. So we'll either apply glue or put your score tape. And we will place that right there. Pretty simple. And we're done with our magnets. We'll place the score tape the same way we did for the back, but we will be adding just a little bit of glue around those magnets. I have the score tape backing off, and you'll want to make sure you get some glue around and on that magnet if you're using score tape. And one thing is you can open this up if you'd like. I'm going to look to see it over here. I'm going to press it down. It ain't going to hurt nothing. But all I'm going to do is, whoops, make sure, I can't tell which way this is supposed to go. I think I'll go with it like this. Get some glue down here in case I need to maneuver so that I can line it up here the same. And I'm just going to open that right on up. Okay, let's take a look. And I can see I have a little trimming still to do on my lace. So there is our front cover, our sides, and our back. We are now moving in to the outside panel. We're on to the outside panel, and in your paper pack you will find this gorgeous print. And on the flip side we have the butterflies. So first things first, let's take off that trim piece. After you take off the trim, the first thing we want to do is we're going to measure over 5 7/8 and cut. So I think you kind of understand how I'm doing my cuts and stuff. So this will be the last time I grab out my paper cutter, unless there's something I really need to show you. But 5 7/8. This piece we'll be getting after again, but for now put it in your reserves. We'll get after that for panel 1. So this is the piece that we want, and we want to turn it this way. Look at it. So this is over here. We're going to measure over 8 inches and cut. This piece, place in your reserves. There are no pre-cuts on the outside panel, which I think you can see. All we're going to do is apply glue, and we're going to center it right on in there and glue that down. And I'm just using glue. Now that I'm on the inside, nothing's going to snag up on me on those edges, just in case I don't quite get it on there good enough. But I think, okay, I'm going to center it in there so I can see where my edges are. Get it on there pretty straight. And then I think I'm just going to open this right on up, flip it over so I can burnish it down. I'm going to grab my other tool. Outside panel is done. We are going to open that up. We are now on to P1, panel 1. We're on panel 1 and we have one pre-cut. It was 3.5 by 9 inches and we called it our side pocket. And what we did was we placed this on our scoring board. We are 3.5 inches across and we scored at 1/2 inch. We then turned this, so now we are 9 inches across. We scored at 1/2 and 8.5. We're going to assemble and get our pocket ready to go. So I'm going to bring this up. If you are new to pocket making, this is real simple. And there are different ways to make pockets. This is just an easy way to show you how to do it. So if you notice, if you're looking at it like this, down in the corner where our score lines meet, it makes a square here and here. We're just going to cut out those squares. Very simple. And once you've done that, we just place this down and we fold on those score lines. We're going to need to add some glue to get this attached, so you have these flaps, and what I like to do when I teach is so that you know how far over you can go with your glue down here on that bottom little flap, is if you push this in, you can see the edge and an imaginary line all the way down. You do not want to go past that, so just down in the corners on each. So with that folded in, now you can bring up the bottom. And there is our pocket. So to understand how the pocket works is you see this bottom flap, that is always going to be the bottom. And when I teach, I will tell you this is actually going to be a side pocket sitting like this. So the opening, which would be here, would be like this. So we'll set that off to the side. In your reserves, let's grab this back out. And we're going to turn it sideways first so that our flowers are up here. We'll measure over 8 inches and cut. After making that cut, this is what you will have. This we'll put in our reserves. Now, we're going to turn this completely upside down where our flowers are over here. We're going to measure over 5 7/8 and cut. After doing that, this little strip we'll put in our reserves. Here is P1. We're going to apply glue and we are going to, let's see, this is the right way. The flowers should be over here. And we are going to center it right on in there. And be mindful of where your score line is. I did draw mine. And the idea is just to center it in there so you're framed with white all the way around. Now that we got the outside, the base, and the decorating of the outside all done, this will go by really quick. We'll place that in there. Now for the pocket, again, the opening is here. So if I was to rotate that, this part is going to come down over here. And we're going to place glue on those flaps. And we'll line it up with our decorative paper, top and bottom, best we can. That came out really pretty. I like how that shows. Now we're going to get our paper for this. And in your reserves, you should have this long piece. Let's see. What we're going to do on this is we're going to measure over 2 7/8 and cut. So just a little bit came off. And now we're going to bring it all the way over to the side of our pocket and glue it down, and that will give us a nice white lip there. Now there's something I wanted to do, and I think we'll do it really quick. Won't take long. In your reserves, let's grab this out. You see this clock here? I'm just going to kind of cut out and round it. We're going to do a couple things. So I'm just going to kind of weave around this really quick, and I'll show you what I come up with. Well, I just kind of did the best I could there. There's one piece to the puzzle. In your reserves, you will find this print, and on the back it is this. Let's look at it like this. I have some writing up here. Well, let's measure over 1 inch and cut. So this is what you should have. Now let's look at our clock here, make sure your 1 is where it should be. And we're just going to add a little glue to the side here. And I just want to make sure that when I overlap this, that it's going to be pretty straight. And using these lines, the paper, just kind of laying it down to try and get this straight will be helpful. Okay, so I think I got that pretty straight. Let's grab a piece of scrap white cardstock. I have one right here. We're going to apply glue to the back of this. We'll glue it down to white cardstock, and then we're going to cut out and round, leaving a little bit of a white border. And then this becomes our tag. So I will show you mine as soon as I am done. So this is what mine looks like. And we're going to apply some glue to over here, and nothing under here because of course that would glue us shut, but we'll come over just a little bit. And this becomes like a tag. I'm going to stick some scratch cardstock back there just in case I have too much glue there. And I'm just going to make sure it goes on straight. And I'll press down so in case I went too far over with the glue. And I did. Sop some of that up. Panel 1 is complete, and we are now moving on to panel 2. We're on panel 2, and we have one pre-cut. It was 3.5 by 6 3/4, and we called it a pocket. And just like we did on the previous one, we laid it so we were about 3.5 across, and we scored at 1/2 inch. We then turned it. Now we're 6 3/4 across. We scored at 1/2 and 6 1/4. Let's go ahead and get our pocket ready to go. Cutting out the squares, folding back, applying our glue. And we'll do that together. Sometimes it's hard to remember, especially when you're new to this. So the squares come out first, and then we fold. Glue down here on the flap. And our pocket is ready to go. In your paper pack, you will have another one of these clock pages. Let's take off that trim piece. Once you have the trim piece off, we're going to turn it sideways so the big clock is sitting over here. Measure over 8 inches and cut. After making that cut, this is what you should have. Let's put this in our reserves. Measure over 5 3/4 and cut. After making that cut, this is what you should have. This goes in your reserves. We're going to apply glue. We'll center it in there. Be mindful of your little score line here from when we put that in. We'll center it and we're going to glue that down. Once you have that down, let's grab our pocket. The opening is here. So this is going to go down here. In your reserves, you will have this piece. It's the butterflies, and it looks like this. So we're going to turn it to where the white is over here. Measure over 2 7/8 and cut. Once you did that, this is what it should look like. Measure over 5 3/4 and cut. We're going to apply glue, and we will bring that down to the bottom of our pocket. We'll leave ourselves a white little lip here, and we'll glue that down. That looks really good. Panel 2 is done. We are now moving on to panel 3. We have 2 pre-cuts for panel 3 or page 3. Let's start with the first one. It is 5 3/4 by 8 5/8, and we called it a flip. We laid this on our scoring board, so we are 8 5/8 across. We scored it at a 1/2 and 5/8. Next, we had a 3 1/2 by 6 3/4 pocket. We laid this on our scoring board. We are 3 1/2 inches across. We scored at a 1/2 inch. We then turned it. We are 6 3/4 across. We scored it at a 1/2 and 6 1/4. Let's go ahead and get our pocket ready to go. Cut out the squares, fold, and adhere the flaps in the back. Okay, pocket's all ready to go. I'm going to stick that off to the side with my flip, and we are going to find our decorated paper. In your reserves, let's get this out. First thing we're going to do is measure over 5 3/4 and cut. Once you did that, we're going to flip that over. Here's our pocket. The opening is going to be here. Let's glue that down. In your reserves, you will have this print. And I want to make sure that my writing is the right way, which it is. So you'll be able to see your writing like right down here. Turn this sideways, measure over 2 7/8 and cut. So you should have flowers over here kind of clustered, and over here I want you to turn it to where it's upside down. Your writing is upside down. Measure over 5 3/4 and cut. All right, this is our final piece here for this. We're going to apply glue. We'll bring it down to the bottom of the pocket. Glue that down. And then next we're going to attach the flip. So here is our flip, and our score lines are here. We're going to fold on those. Okay, so we folded on both of the score lines. So this is going to attach over into the back of this, but I want to show you the easiest way to get this on straight. You have a bottom score line and a top one. On the top one, I want you to pinch and crease, and you'll still be able to see your other score line. We're just going to hook that on back behind where we pinched and crease. We'll line it up. It should look like that. We'll pinch and hold this down with our hand so it does not slide. If your piece slides, realign it. And a lot of times you can see, if you are straight, that by when your hand's down and you fold this back, you should be able to see your score lines pretty straight there. Now when doing fold outs or flips, once you place your glue and you get this down, you'll want to immediately open it up to make sure no glue seeped out. And if it did, you'll wipe it up. So now that we have that on, your other score line you can press back against and then push. And then what that does is create a spacing. So we're going to place our paper here, and I think I want to use this. This is in our reserves. And let's see here. Let's turn it upside down. So our writing is upside down, because I think I want to get this cluster over on this side. Measure over 5 3/4 and cut. This piece put in your reserves. Now we're going to turn it so you'll be able to see your writing over here, the print in the clusters here. Measure over, let's do 7 7/8, and then we're going to cut. Our final piece should look like this. If we place this down, let's see, we'll have a border top and bottom, but you know what, I want to cut down the side a little bit more. So let's turn this back around. I want you to measure over 5 5/8 and cut. We're going to get that a little less there. That way we have a nice border. So 5 5/8. That should help us out a little bit. Let's see. We got a white border now, top, bottom, and the sides. Let's glue that down. Actually, you know, this would look really good on this side. I think we're going to use this side up. I have an idea. I think that that's going to look really good when we're done. So we'll put glue on this side. Changed my mind. I want to do something else. And I will do that. Change my mind. Something else pops in my head. Or sometimes I think, that might be a little too busy. So let's see what's on the other side. And it looks really good. Flip this up. In your paper pack, you will find this print. On the back, it is this. Let's take off that trim piece. Okay, we're going to do a little different cut on this. Once you've taken off that trim piece, measure over 5 1/2 inches and cut. That looks good. Turn it this way. We're going to go 7 3/4 on this and cut. Okay, we'll apply glue and we're going to center it right on in there, and that'll give us a better white border around there. We're going to glue that down. If you prefer to use that side, go ahead. All right, I think that looks pretty good. We're going to flip that down. In your reserves, we were using this as our cut apart. And you see this one? Let's get that out. What we're going to do is cut out and around this piece, and I'm just going to try and keep this attached if I can. I don't know why. I don't think I'm going to. I might be able to use that, but I'm just going to keep it all together. Once you cut out and around, grab some scratch white cardstock, glue it down, and cut out and around and leave a white border. And I'll show you mine when I'm done. And as far as my cuts, I'm not being real detailed. I'm just kind of weaving around this piece best I can. This is mine. Okay, so top of our flip, I believe that, let's see here. I think I want to put it right here, but I want to make sure that I can still tuck back behind. So I'm going to rotate this over, and I do want to get down in here, some glue on the bottom, and then just along the side here. Let's see. I don't want that much glue, but just make sure you don't go over the side or the bottom. and your 12 is where it needs to be. And now you have a nice little tuck to place a photograph. Let's grab our folio. Here is our panel 3. We're going to apply glue to the back. We're going to place this in here, and we're going to make sure that we have a good 1/8 inch away from your hinge area here. And that'll still give you some white border on the other side. So let's get that down. So once you have it in place, then you can flip that up and then burnish. It'll be easier. That way you get it all down. Panel 3 is complete. We are now moving on to panel 4. We're on panel 4. There are no pre-cuts. In your paper pack, you will find this print. On the back, it is the polka dots. Let's take off the trim piece. For this, first thing we're going to do is turn it sideways. The bulk of the flowers are up here. Measure over 8 inches and cut. After making that cut, this is what you should have. We're going to turn this upside down where the bulk of the flowers are here. Measure over 6 inches and cut. This is what our final piece should look like. Now on this, do not let your eyes trick you of where it's supposed to be. I did darken up my one score line here. You have another one right here. Over here, there is nothing. That is just part of a small little spine area. So make sure that when you place this, you're in between this score line and that one and centered in there. Now, if you prefer to have the polka dots, that's really cute. You can put the polka dot side down. I'm going to use the other though. Okay, panel 4 is complete. We are now moving on to panel 5, or page 5. This will be the last of the pre-cuts for the rest of this folio. We're on panel 5. Let's go over them. The first one we had was 5 5/8 by 8 1/4. We called it a fold out. We laid this on our scoring board. We are 5 5/8 across, and we scored at a 1/2 inch. Next, what we did was a 3 1/2 by 5 7/8. We called it an FO pocket. It's our fold out pocket. We laid this on our scoring board. We are 3 1/2 inches across. We scored it at a 1/2. We then turned it. We are 5 7/8 across. We scored at a 1/2 and at 5 3/8. Before we begin, let's go ahead and assemble our pocket. My pocket is all ready to go. I am going to stick this off to the side with my fold out. Now we can begin by getting our main decorated page. In your reserves, you will have this print on the back. It's the polka dots. Let's go ahead and look at it like this. We're going to measure over 5 3/4 and cut. Here is our panel 5. And we're going to flip it over to the polka dot side, and we're going to center it right on in there and glue that down. And then we're going to stick the fold out on top of it rather than hook it on behind, because due to spacing back there, we really can't have the spacing on the fold out like we did with the flip. So we're going to do it this way, which is perfectly acceptable. I love these colors. They're just beautiful. Some of my favorite ones are blue, tan, and all these pretty colors in there. Okay, our fold out. Let's fold on that score line. Okay, so here is going to be our hinge is going to be off to the right. We're going to apply some glue here. We'll fold it back, and at the edge of your decorated paper, we are going to line that up top and bottom of your white cardstock and place it. And then we'll get something to cover up the little bit of the hinge that you can see. So that's just real easy how we do that. And if you want to bring it over to the side of your white cardstock, that's perfectly fine too. It's just all in how you want to do it. I'll do that. So there's that. In your reserves, you're going to find a very long, skinny piece. It has part of the butterflies on one side. I believe this is, what, 8 inches possibly? We're going to use it because it's a good scrap. It's 8 inches long and very narrow. But if you were to flip this piece over, you'd have a tan. And you see where your hinge is? We're just going to bring that right up next to our print. And then that covers up a lot of the hinge area. If you'd rather have butterflies up, that surely would look good too. And I think even though my writing is upside down here, I have this little white bit, I'm still just gonna put it like this so I have more tan up here. Bring it down. So for the inside of our fold out, let's get some paper. And I believe I would like to use this, and this is in our reserves. We're going to turn it this way. We'll measure over 8 inches and cut. Now that you've got that cut down, we'll look at it like this, and we're going to measure over 4 7/8 and cut. We're going to apply glue, and we're going to glue it right on down inside that fold out. If you'd rather have this color showing up, you can. That looks good. We'll fold that in, and we're going to get our paper for right here. In your paper pack, you will find this print on the back. It's the butterflies again. Let's take off that trim piece. Now that we have the trim piece off, what I think we're going to do is just turn this sideways, measure over 8 inches, and cut. Once you've done that, flip it upside down. Flowers are over here. Measure over 4 7/8 and cut. We're going to apply glue. If you'd rather have the butterflies up and then the pocket over that, you can. I'm going to go with it this way though. All right, opening is this way. Let's put down the pocket. And the pocket just lays right over our decorative paper. So first thing is we're going to measure over 4 7/8. So that's what you'll have. We'll turn it this way, measure over 2 7/8 and cut. Let's apply glue and glue that down. If you do not want the butterflies, you can apply glue to this side and go with it like that. And that would actually look really good. So it just depends on how you would like to do it. Oh, actually I'm going to go with this side up. I think I want to do that because I'm going to add a clock for some interest. See, I told you I changed my mind. Once I start looking at things, I'll change my mind. All right, let's get out our piece. And let's see here. That would look good. See this little piece down here off to the side? Let's use it. It doesn't matter if it's sideways or what. Let's just cut out. And I think I'm going to cut off these things. I'm just going to kind of come around. And I'm going to make a little tuck area for maybe a tag or something. I'm not going to back this. All I'm going to do is add a little bit of glue right down across the bottom. Place it down somewhere in there in the middle. And then if you have a small little tag you can make or something, let's see what I've got. A small little photograph, stick it right up there. Alrighty. Panel 5 is complete. We are now moving on to panel 6, 7, and 8, and we're going to complete them all together. There's no pre-cuts, so let's begin. In your paper pack, you will find this print. On the back, it is this. Let's take off that trim piece. We're going to be using this for majority of what's going to be happening here. We do have some different cuts though. So we are going to turn this sideways. Our print's down here. We're going to measure over 8 inches and cut. Our first cut is, now that we have this cut down, 5 3/4 and cut. Once you make that cut, you'll have a larger side. We'll hold that off to the side. This piece, apply glue, and we're going to glue that down right here. This piece, we're going to measure over 6 inches and cut. After doing that, this one now places here and gets glued down. In your reserves, you will have this piece. We're going to turn it this way. We'll measure over 8 inches and cut. After making that cut, we're now going to measure over 2 7/8 and cut. We'll apply glue, and be mindful there's a score line here. I'm going to bring this down. I still have to glue down my panels here. We're going to bring it right on over and glue that down. And then what we're going to do is get after this little inner spine area and over here. So let's get this all done. I've got mine all glued down. Now it's time to get right in here and over here, this small little bit. So the first thing is, in your reserves you will find this skinny long piece. And it is about maybe a 1/2 inch by, it should be by 8, I'm thinking, possibly. It is. Now I want you to check to make sure. You might have to take a 1/16 off the side, but what we're going to do is, you see right here, if you were to open your folio up to where you were looking at it like this, this is the middle. If you flip it over and push it against your little spine or your little hinge area here, make sure that you have enough clearance for your other score line. And if you can bring it up and it's not bubbling up, then it's good. And mine will fit there. It might be a hair less than that 1/2 inch. But if you are feeling like it's just too tight in there and it's going to interfere with you closing, trim off of 1/16 and then you should be okay. But we're going to use this side actually, and that'll match up. And just push down in there. Okay, we have another piece here, and I'm sure we'll be able to find something. And I found this, and we are going to get to that. This is a long skinny strip of the polka dot, and that will fit right in there between the hinge and that. So no cutting necessary. If you'd rather have something else, you can, but I'm going to match it on in here. Just make sure you don't get on your score line. There's that. Now for this. In your reserves, you'll have this piece, and we're just going to measure over 8 inches and cut. We're going to measure over 5/8 and cut. And we'll just glue that right down over here. Oh, this looks so pretty. I love this. And then right over here you can do, if you'd like, I'm just going to take just a sliver. And that should be somewhere around 1/4 or so. So I probably only going to do like a 1/8 inch strip off this. Something really skinny, just to add a little something. And just make sure that you're not too wide. You will notice that if you fold in this, you have this. And we're going to cut another strip using this. Measure over 5/8 and cut. And we'll apply glue and we will get that down. A very neutral color that we're using. That way we're not too busy from going from page to page. So let's take a look at what we have, and again we'll close it up together. I think it came out beautiful. So if we come to our first panel 1, and we just close that in, and then we flip that, and then we flip that again and bring this over. So there is our folio. We don't do picture mats together, but this is mostly made for a lot of picture placement, and as far as the pockets go, you don't want to overstuff them. You don't want to put 5 photo mats in one pocket. It's not made for that. And I hope you like it. Happy crafting, and I will see you on my next tutorial.